Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Todd Klindt's SharePoint Netcast number 180, recorded live Monday, December 2nd, 2013. I am your host and part-time mall Santa, Todd Klindt, and all of this would not be possible, except for the hat. The hat is all mine, but the rest of it is courtesy of the fine folks at Rackspace. So go out to sharepoint.rackspace.com. I guarantee if you've been there recently, they've added new stuff since then. So go out to sharepoint.rackspace.com and and see what they've got out there. They've got training. They've got all kinds of cool stuff, videos, all kinds of fun things out there. And the more people go out there, the more likely it is that my boss won't fire me. So that's good. We all like that. Got a lot of lists to feed in the Klindt house, so not getting fired is good. So check that out. It's sharepoint.rackspace.com. And again, a month or so ago, we released a new fancy mobile view. And so if you've got a mobile device, you can check it out on your iPad or your Windows device, Windows RT even. Is that even still around? Do they still make that? Windows RT, Apple devices, all that stuff. It's all good. So we got that. We'll go on to production notes. Not a lot here. Again, things have been going pretty well. I did just realize that I haven't updated the RSS feed for a couple of netcasts. That's mainly because I'm a slacker. So I apologize to all of you that subscribe via Zune or iTunes or all that. You're a couple of weeks behind. You're all caught up as of now. I promise I will get that out tomorrow for tonight, so you won't have to wait. I apologize for that because you subscribers, you are the backbone of this great netcast, out there diligently downloading this every week, whether it's any good or not. I appreciate that, and so I will try to be more vigilant about that. That is the most, the reason that one always gets done last is that is the most manual process of all of this, and so it just kind of gets down by the wayside. But I should start using PowerShell to automate that. I've thought about that in the past, so maybe I'll do that and make it go a little more quickly. There are some folks in the chat room that are fessing up to not being subscribers. I'm a little disappointed, not mad, just disappointed. But you can subscribe to the MP3 feed. You can subscribe to the MP4 feed, which is one better than the MP3, and it's got video, which some would argue is probably not better. And then also, if you do the YouTube thing, you can go out to youtube.com/Todd Klindt Netcast. We'll put all that there, and you can get to it that way, so however you want to consume that. And here in a minute, I'm going to talk about another cool way for you to get my Netcast information. But I will try to be more vigilant about that, and again, I think I've got a PowerShell way I can automate a bunch of that. Another production thing that I wanted to mention is I had a request from Hugh on Twitter. He's in Scotland, Hugh Wood. And he asked me last week, I think it was last week about this time, what time all this was on. So this is 8:30 Central, and I'm GMT minus 5 or 6, depending on what time of the year it is. But regardless, GMT minus 5 or GMT minus 6, it puts this thing at like 1:30 in the morning in Europe. And I tried to tell Hugh, I tried to talk some sense into him. I tried to say, Hugh, this is absolutely not worth staying up to watch. I wouldn't be here if I didn't have to. It's just not that good, but he was very nice, he was very insistent, and he asked me to put a time zone calculator on my website so that people from other time zones can see what time this direct comes on every week. Now, I was under the impression, mistaken apparently, that the world revolved around the central U.S. time zone. Turns out that is not the case, and so I added that on there. I put a little link to the Wolfgram Alpha thing, and it figures out wherever you're at and then just tells you what the local time is. And I did that a couple of days ago. Immediately today in the chat room and on Twitter, I had people that are not in the U.S. or not in my time zone thanking me for that. So apparently that was a bigger thing than I thought it was. So Mark in the chat room is saying I was mistaken. Of course, everything revolves around the U.S. Eastern time zone. So I missed it by that much. So anyway, that's there. So I apologize to all of you folks in other time zones who've been wanting to figure out when the show was and just not being able to do the time zone math. And I don't say that to talk down to you, because I travel all the time. I flew 105,000 miles on Delta this year, something like that. And I've been that way for several years now. I still screw up time zones. I still go the wrong direction. Like if I'm in Seattle, I'll tell my wife that I'm 2 hours the other direction. So I'm not passing judgment on anybody. Trust me. But I'm glad that was out there. Thanks to Hugh for bringing that up. And hopefully that'll make it easier for more folks to show up in the chat room. We got a good group in there. Got some folks from Canada. We had somebody from Australia, but he must have dropped out. So that seems to have helped. So that is that. But for production, that's about it. So for the topics, the first topic I'm very, very excited about. I talked about this last week and I think a little bit the week before, but it is official. The official Todd Klindt app is in the Windows Phone App Store. So if you go to the Windows Phone App Store, everybody, I got two cameras, so I got to make sure that I show it on both of them. And you go and you search for my name, and that's not how you spell my name. That's not how you spell my name either. I'm terrible at this. And you start typing in the store. There is an app and a podcast now. So my podcast is in there. You can't see that even a little bit, can you? Sorry about that. But there's an app in there. And so now you can load up this app, and it's free because Lord knows it wouldn't be worth anything if you paid for it. So there's what it looks like in there. Pretty cool, pretty cool. You can load that app up now on your Windows 8 phone, and it's got a bunch of cool stuff in there. So what you've got is all my blog posts. And these are the screenshots that come with it. So as I blog, it's going to update that. As I put a new Netcast out, it's going to update that. I've got some just web links, places like that. Linda in the chat room is saying, finally I can switch over to Windows Phone now. And then I've got a list of upcoming events that I'm going to be going to, things like that. So that is all out there. Now, one thing that this does not do is it does not update the live tile. When I update things, I need to look into that. But if you want to have an easy place, you can pin that to your start screen and then click that, and it will tell you my new blog posts and my new Netcast and all that stuff that comes out. So that is pretty cool. A couple of people, I talked about this last week, a couple of people in the chat room mentioned that they are Windows Phone 8 developers. I may reach out to some of you because I've got some ideas that I don't think that I can do on my own. So let's talk about how I did that now. Last week it happened. People came out, they used the D word in my presence. They accused me of being one of those. And that hurt my feelings a little bit. I am not a developer, but so first let me put the link here. If you want to download the app, you can go out to the Windows Phone 8 App Store and search for it, or go to toddklindt.com/download WinPhone app, and that will take you to the app in the App Store. But the way that I did that is Microsoft has this really great app creation website. And if you go to apps.windowsstore.com, it's an online thing. And I was able to do that. I was able to open it up, and there's all these different templates for things. So I picked the one that was the closest to what I wanted. And then you define your data sources. So I said, look at my YouTube channel, look at my blog, look at my pictures, things like that. And then you just kind of build it out from that. There was nothing to it. So if you're looking at doing something like this, you got to go out to apps.windowsstore.com and just poke around a little bit. I would tell you that publishing the app, so after I had the app done to the time that it actually showed up in the App Store, that part was maybe more complicated than actually creating the app. So you got to give it a shot. Now, I plan on updating it. I've got some ideas that I want to do, so there will be updates to it. But I am also looking for suggestions. I know how I use it, but I don't know how you guys use it. So by all means, give me suggestions on it. You can, hit me up on Twitter at Todd Klindt. I set up an email address for that. You can email me at phoneapp@toddklindt.com, and that'll show up to me if you've got ideas. Also, I noticed that one person out there has reviewed it and given it 5 stars. That's a complete and utter lie, but I appreciate it. So if you do download it and you do like it, please go out there and put a review and all that. That does help me. It makes it show up higher in search results and all that kind of thing. But I am interested in improving it, so I do want suggestions, and I do want, there's any Windows Phone developers out there looking for stuff to do, get a hold of me, because I would like to do some things like get that live tile going, things like that. So very excited about that, though. That's pretty cool. I've been wanting to do that for a couple of weeks, and just all the pieces have been going slowly. So very excited about that. So now we start one of the, I apologize, the camera move just changed. I had a little feline assistant down there in my camera. Folks in the chat room are rallying the calls around me being a developer. I can't even, if I make the mark of being a developer, it's a sad state for the entire industry. That's all I have to say. Okay, so here's a fun one, and I think, we have a celebrity in the chat room tonight. This was another one. So a buddy of mine, Mike F Robbins, he's a big deal in the PowerShell community. I read his blog because he's smarter than me, and I learn something all the time. But the blog post that he put out, this last one, is one that not only is good for just PowerShell knowledge, just learning things, but it's also good for SharePoint folks. So I wanted to share that one with you. So Mike has a blog post on how to determine which device is locking out an Active Directory user account. So we've all had that problem. Active Directory by its nature has multiple masters, and things like that. So if you've got an account that keeps getting locked out, it can be tough to determine where that's happening. Usually it's something somewhere that's got a saved password, you've changed the passwords, and this thing doesn't know, and it keeps locking you out, but you don't know where the thing is to find it. So that's what Mike's script does, and I bring that up because I've seen this happen numerous times in SharePoint environments. You have the farm account or something like that, and something keeps locking that account, and you have no idea why. And most of the SharePoint guys are okay at AD, but not great at AD. And so doing this thing where you have to figure out where in the wide world of your entire network is locking that account can be kind of daunting. And so Mike's got this great script, and it's got some things you can limit it by number of days. You can give an account name, things like that, and it will tell you which device on your network is locking your account. So that's kind of handy. You can narrow it down to the machine that's locking your service accounts, and then hopefully by there what the process is. But I know that in the past I would have had a lot of use for that. I mean, there are times in the past, I'm sure I will in the future as well. But that's a great little thing. A big fan of that. So Mike is in the chat room right now. So for those of you that think it's a great tool, thank Mike for it right now. If you have any questions about it, shoot Mike a line. But yeah, it's a pretty helpful little thing. So Jeff is asking if it requires a domain admin account to run. Mike will answer that. I don't remember if it does or not. Well, I know it prompts you for your username, so it might. So thanks to Mike for that. Speaking of other cool PowerShell things that are immensely handy and useful that I had no part of, this script keeps coming up. And so I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about it because I got into a discussion on Twitter about it last week. And I feel like I link this script once a week to somebody. And so I think I'm going to blog about it so that I don't have to look it up every time. Because every time I want to reference a script, I have to try to find it in my notes. But this is Russ Maxwell's script on why SharePoint 2013 updates take 5 hours to install, and his script on how to prevent that, how to make that shorter. So for those of you that haven't used this before, there's a link in the chat room. There'll be a link in the show notes for it. But it's a PowerShell script that goes in and shuts a bunch of things off before, and then runs your PowerShell update, your cumulative update from PowerShell. And if you don't run something like Russ Max's script, then it can take forever for patches to install, and it literally can be 5 hours. And Russ goes into a great description on why that is. But this script will walk through and shut all these things off, reboot your box, set everything up. So instead of taking 5 hours to install a cumulative update, it might take 15 minutes, 10 minutes, something like that, something a little more reasonable. So every time, and I feel like it's like my lot in life, every single time on Twitter or Facebook that I see somebody complain about how long a patch takes to upload or to install, I send them a link to that. I think I'm going to put it on my patches page probably, because it is just that useful. I use it all the time when I patch SharePoint 2013 boxes. It is just that great. But specifically, the thing that came up this last week, Tom Resing and I were discussing this. I can't remember if there's anybody else in there. But one of the things that it asks you if you want to do is stop search or pause search. And Tom was kind of curious what the difference was and why you would care which you did, stop or pause. So what it comes down to is that if you stop search, if you pick that option of stopping search, it stops the search service on that box. So it literally is like the old net stop, oh search, blah. So it's stopping something on your box. So if you have multiple servers in your farm, if you choose the stop option, it only stops search on your particular box. And so if you've got a big farm and the box that you're patching is a query server, if you have multiple query servers, you're probably okay. You can stop search on this one, and then all the queries will go to the other query server, things like that. But the important thing to keep in mind is the stop is on the server. The pause pauses the search service app, which is farm-wide. So it does it on all the machines in your farm. So that's the difference between them. You're stopping it on the server or you're pausing it in the farm. And the reason you might choose one over the other has a lot to do with whether your farm is up, whether people will be expecting search to work, if you have a lot of search-driven pages, if you're using the content by search web part, things like that. But it's important for you to know the ramifications of each and choose wisely. I think normally when I install this, I normally choose the stop so that it stops the search on that server alone. But there are different reasons why you might want it. Russ does a pretty good job in his blog post about spelling that out, but sometimes hearing it a different way makes it make a little more sense. So the stop is for the server, the pause is for the farm, and either way it's going to speed up that search thing. So I plan on blogging that at some point just so I can have a short URL or something to point people to. But I'm a big fan of that script. There are initially some problems, I don't want to say problems, but some things that Russ could have done better. Some people left him comments, he fixed it up, so that script's good to go. So thanks to Russ for that. And thanks to my squeaky chair. While we're talking about PowerShell, this little ditty came across the wire last week as well. And this comes from the TechNet galleries. And this is a PowerShell script that basically checks the ports on your SharePoint server that SharePoint needs, some of them, not all of them, and lets you know if they're open or not. It essentially tries to connect to the ports, the SMTP ports and all that kind of stuff. It's kind of a weird little script. It uses some weird PowerShell, particularly how it builds up the list of ports and all that. I probably wouldn't have done it quite like that myself, but they've got their stuff published on Microsoft.com, and I don't, so what do I know? But so I would not think of it as a be-all, end-all script, but it is kind of an interesting one to look at, see what it does, maybe add some of your own stuff to it. But basically it goes out, like I said, tries to connect to each of the ports. It's got a function that creates a list of ports, walks through, you give it the machine name, it tries to connect all of them, make sure that they're open. So I don't know for sure when I would use it, but it was just an interesting script. I liked it when I saw it. So continuing with the PowerShell thing, I saw this also. I can't remember where this was. So anybody who does any kind of scripting knows that part of the job of scripting is figuring out how to do things. And at least for me, a bigger part of scripting is going out and finding people who've already done the thing that you're trying to do and borrowing their work. I mean, if it's out on a blog or whatever, it's probably fine. And so one of the things that I did, I try to use a lot of stuff that's already out there. And at PowerShell.com, they have a bunch of free ebook kind of stuff out there. And this last link is a bunch of stuff they call it the Power Tips Reference Library. And I've seen some of that stuff before, but what really grabbed me was the latest chapter that they released out there, the latest tip, is on building functions in PowerShell. And that is something that I found every time I need to do a function, I can never remember the syntax for it off the top of my head, so I always have to go out and, Google PowerShell function. Actually, I've got one of Don Jones's books, and I've got a shortcut to it on my desktop, and I just open it up, and he's got a pretty good chapter on writing functions. But functions is something that's kind of, and I don't know how many steps there are, but that is definitely one of the later steps in your PowerShell career, figuring out how to use PowerShell and bending it to your will and writing really great little one-liners that take care of a specific thing, scratch a specific itch. Once you kind of get past that, you start working towards building functions, and functions are reusable blocks of code that do things. Sometimes you pass them variables, sometimes they output things, but it is this reusable chunk of code that's very portable. And I've found the more I write PowerShell, the more I find myself creating functions to do, because I find myself doing the same things over and over again. But it's not obvious. Lori in the chat room saying it's been one particular function's been causing her grief for a couple of weeks. So having this Power Tips reference library with this latest chapter being on functions was kind of good, because that's something I always need to review, something I think we can all do better. And to borrow another one of Don Jones's things that he talks about when he talks about PowerShell is Don is a big fan of what he calls tool making. So this idea that you don't write your PowerShell scripts for you to use, you write your PowerShell for somebody else to use, and you want to write your PowerShell in such a way that you never have to run it, that it just works so well that you can give it to somebody else and they can run it. And building good functions and all that is part of that. So for free, you can download this thing about functions and kind of read up on them and see how you can work those into your PowerShell library, because it's something that's definitely helped me with some things that I've done. Okay, so that was my last PowerShell topic. This was another one that I saw this week, and this one was on, where is that at? Apparently I don't have it in my notes. Come here, you. Oh yeah, Paul Cumsey. Okay, so this was, I try to keep on top of what things patches break, and Paul Cumsey at cleverworkarounds.com, which is a great little site that's got all kinds of cool little things, talks about how after the October 2013 cumulative update for SharePoint 2013, you're no longer able to open up the Performance Point Dashboard Designer. And so he talks a little bit about all that, and basically what it is, you got to copy some files around, and there's some stuff on the file system. So I added that to the October 2013 cumulative update page, but really just want to get that out there. If you can't open up the Performance Point Designer and you have the October 2013 CU, well, that's your problem. So he's got the Fix 40 links. It's awesome. He links to a knowledge base article that tells how to fix this problem, but doesn't have the error message in it, so you can't search for the error message and find this knowledge base article, which is super helpful when you're trying to troubleshoot things. So Paul's article's got all this. I've added it to my my wiki for all the posts or the cumulative updates. So hopefully save somebody some headache out there. So interesting, when I went out to the October 2013 one, I realized I didn't have any links for the project server patch, because that hadn't come out when I updated the page last. So I went out and looked, and it's still not out. We're in December, the next even numbered month, and the October cumulative update for project server, as far as I can tell, has not been released. So those guys they must feel horribly left out. Horribly left out, because us SharePoint server guys got patches that'll break our stuff, and they just don't have that. So that's interesting. Trevor in the chat room is saying they're not going to have one. I'll have to talk to him after the show and get all the links for that. So if you're a project server admin, you've been patiently, or not so patiently, waiting for the October 2013 cumulative update for project server 2013, well, you can stop waiting. It looks like there's not going to be one. So always something good. I'll have to add that to my notes. And also, I am remiss, scripting wife herself, Teresa Wilson, is gracing the chat room with her presence right now, and she reminded me that PowerShell.com is a cool website. PowerShell.org, equally cool. And if you go out to PowerShell.org and cruise through some of the forums, you'll find answers from yours truly. And one of those I need to turn into a blog post. I had one of those out there. Somebody asked a question about custom properties, custom columns, and I didn't have the answer right away. And then I kind of gave him a half answer, and then a couple weeks later had a customer that needed it, so I couldn't not figure it out, and so I figured it out and followed up. So I need to blog that as well. But PowerShell.org, they've got some great forums there, and that's run by guys like Don Jones and all those folks. They're the folks that are having the PowerShell Summit in April. So if you dig PowerShell, that's a great place to go. Unfortunately, I am not able to go. I have a family commitment that week, but the PowerShell Summit is pretty cool also. So something that I did not mention last week, and I felt kind of embarrassed about it after I noticed that I didn't mention it last week, was the whole charity thing. And I want to make sure that I got all my stuff. Well, so the Netcast Hooligans, as a general rule, for my birthday in January, which is next month, but you guys knew that already, normally give something to charity. So it's one of the things that I've done for a while. I like to give money to charity. So a couple of years ago, Dan Usher and Lori Gowan thought it would be outstanding to honor my birthday with giving some money to charity on my birthday, and that's been awesome. Like I said here a couple of weeks ago, it literally brings a tear to my eye every January when I get that card, because they have everybody sign it and they tell me what charities they gave money to and all that. And so I turned 40 in January, and so they kind of want to do something special. So Lori, who is in the chat room right now, as Lori Gowan, has set up an email thing. If you would like to be involved in that, you can email her at gowanl@bellsouth.net and do whatever you do. Every little bit counts, but it works out well. It dovetails well, because this season is always when I start thinking about giving to charities, because the holidays and all that, get all sentimental, and the older I get, all that. But that works out very well. So thanks to Lori for setting that up. But if you do want to get involved in that, you can email her gowanl@bellsouth.net, and she'll let you know. All right. So that is it for the topics. I was a little busy last week. So those of you, I try not to talk about a lot of family stuff on this, because I just assume that none of you care. I can't imagine that anybody would. But we've been talking about this for a couple of weeks, that my wife was pregnant, and she had the baby last Tuesday on November 26th. So last week was kind of busy. I didn't do much SharePoint, and there was the holiday involved and all that. So that's why not a lot of content tonight, because I was busy with other stuff. But so that's why we're here. So for those of you in the chat room who are going to be asking, I was a little boy. We named him Owen Alexander. He was born Tuesday night, and he and my wife doing well. Everybody's happy. He's upstairs. My wife's trying to keep him from crying right now. Those of you that have kids know what that's like. So it's all good. It's all good. But Rackspace, being the outstanding company that they are, they actually give paternity leave. So I get a couple weeks of paternity leave to kind of help everything along. But I will use part of that for you guys to make sure that I'm keeping on top of the SharePoint world. Okay, down to everybody's favorite part of the Netcast, the shameless self-promotion. So, of course, everybody already has a copy of Professional SharePoint 2013 Administration, but now is the time to buy one for somebody else. It's the holiday season. They make great stocking stuffers. We might have a couple days left in Hanukkah. I don't know, and I apologize if I've offended anybody with that. But a great time to buy people copies. You can buy them physical copies. You can buy them copies for their Kindle, for their Nook. You can do whatever. That's all out there. That's all. You can buy those. The next thing, so starting next year, my travel schedule is already getting full. I will be at the New Media Expo in January. I won't be speaking. I will be just hanging out, soaking it all up. Lynn's going to be there. We're going to hang out a lot. She might not know that yet. Might change her plans on going. But so I'm just going to be learning all kinds of cool stuff about making the podcast better, making my blog better. Probably their first suggestion will be to get it off of SharePoint. But so that'll be fun. I'll be there the first week of January, picking up stuff, picking up ideas. Then in March, they're having this little thing out in Vegas, maybe you've heard, called the SharePoint Conference. And Shane and I will be very busy at the SharePoint Conference. There's going to be a lot of stuff going on. The SharePoint Conference itself is March 3rd through the 6th, but if you haven't gotten enough SharePoint goodness in the past at the SharePoint Conference and want to have more SharePoint fun, never fear. This year they're having both pre and post conference sessions, and Shane and I will be doing a pre-conference session on March 2nd. It's going to be on installing and configuring and just bending SharePoint 2013 to your will from the administrator's standpoint. And the conference is $2,000 to get in, worth every penny. Our session is another $400 on top of that, and that will be March 2nd. And then the 3rd through the 6th, there's going to be a ton of things going on, but Shane and I have 3 sessions. And here's where the people in the chat room get all excited. The first set, well, I don't know, one of the first session that we're going to be doing is load testing SharePoint 2013 with Visual Studio 2013. This comes up a lot. We have a lot of customers asking, you know, we're absorbing another company. There's going to be another 10,000 employees. Will our existing SharePoint farm handle that load? And it's tough to make sure of that. It's tough. There's not a lot of tools. SharePoint's pretty complicated, so knowing which parts can stand up and which parts can't is tough to determine. So we're going to be doing a session on using the built-in tools in Visual Studio 2013 to hammer on your SharePoint farm and figure out, you know, how much load it can handle, where the weak spots are, things like that. That should be a fun one. And of course, all the people in the chat room are all, yay, developer, one of us. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't even think it compiles anything when I do that. There's very little C# code involved. Oh. Oh, mercy me. So the second session that we're going to be doing is an upgrade session, upgrading from SharePoint 2010. So SharePoint Jack is asking if it is a regular session. Yep, this is just one of the breakout sessions. So when you get in, it's one of the hour-long sessions, 75-minute sessions. Becky Isserman is in the chat room. She says that her cat thinks I'm a developer. Thanks, Cable. I appreciate that. But yeah, it's just a breakout session, 75-minute one. And there'll be some scripts and stuff involved, but it'll all be good. So again, doing a upgrade session, upgrading from SharePoint 2010 to SharePoint 2013. We'll be doing that one. And then finally, we're going to be doing a using PowerShell with SharePoint 2013 and SharePoint Online session. So, you know, we've been doing that one for a while. We're adding the SharePoint Online part of that to this session. So be out there. Another thing is there for those of you, and I know a bunch of folks in the chat room, Lori's going to be there. I don't know if they're going to let Eric in or not. Jack's going to be there at the SharePoint Conference. Raise your hand if you're going to be at the SharePoint Conference there. Excuse me. But I'm going to be recording this Netcast live at the conference at some point. They're going to have the SPC TV stuff set up, and they've told me that they're going to find a time for me to record that, and you can have a live studio audience and all that kind of stuff. And so for those of you that are going to be there, keep track of that. I'll be doing that live, and I would love to have you all in the audience. Teresa's going to be there, SharePoint Madam. Doug Heminger is going to be there, so we'll have a whole bunch of people. Eric Harlan says he's going to be there, but I don't know that he knows. I'm just saying, you know, it may not, especially with the company you keep when you go to these conferences, you may find yourself somebody meeting you at the door. That's all I'm saying. But anyway, we're going to be doing this live, so hopefully have a good crowd there. I'm very excited. That'll be fun. The next place I'm going to be is in April. I'm going to be at SP TechCon in San Francisco. You can go to sptechcon.com and find out all about that. That is going to be April 22nd through the 25th. Shane and I are not doing any kind of pre or post sessions for that one, just doing breakouts. And I'm hoping to do a live netcast there as well. A bunch of folks in the chat room have done that with me before. It's a good time. That one it's always tough because there's, much like the SharePoint conference, there's always things going on at night, and so it's tough to find time. But we've been able to do that. Doing some sessions there. That'll be a good time. And then in May, so March is SharePoint conference, May is SP TechCon, or April is SP TechCon. May is Microsoft Tech Ed, and I will be doing a pre-conference session there, and that's going to be similar to the one that we're doing in Vegas. Not exactly the same at the SharePoint conference, but it's going to be building SharePoint 2013. And that will be in Houston, so that's right in Teresa's backyard, SharePoint Madam. So we're going to we're all going to have a grill out at Teresa's house. She doesn't know it yet, but we're going to be in Houston, May 12th through the 15th. So Teresa Wilson, not SharePoint Madam Teresa, is wanting me to go to a SharePoint Saturday event. I think I'm actually traveling for work for something else. I'm not opposed to going to a SharePoint Saturday. I travel so much, but we'll see. So for the first half of the year, I've got a bunch of stuff lined up. So if you can make it to any of them, that'll be great. We'd love to see you. If Rackspace has got a booth, swing by and say hi. If if you're at a conference or whatever and you see me, for goodness sakes, come over, introduce yourself, shake my hand. I'm a really friendly guy. Love to talk to people who watch the Netcast, listen to the Netcast. Love to find out what they like, what they don't like. I kind of know what they don't like, but always up for those conversations. So don't be shy. If you see me, come say hey. So, well, I think that is everything. In the chat room, they're talking about how warm it's going to be in Houston in May. It'll be warm. Houston gets warm, and it gets that humid warm off the Gulf. It's a good time. You spend a lot of time indoors, though, so it's not so bad. So thanks to everybody in the chat room. I will see you next week, as far as I know. That should be fine. I'm close to it. I haven't tallied it yet, but I think 2013 I will do the most netcasts that I've done of any year. That's one of the things that I've tried to do is be consistent and do them more often. And I think that's working in 2013. A lot of that has to do with you jokers in the chat room. You make this a lot of fun, so I appreciate that. And the emails and stuff that I get. So this is turning out to be a banner year for the Netcast, and I appreciate it. I owe it all to you guys. So thanks. Thanks to everybody, and like I said, you guys have a good week, and I will see you next week.